Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. After surviving a helicopter crash and 15 years of chaos as a Denver firefighter, all he wanted was silence in the mountains. But when a power-hungry HOA queen sets her sights on his private rehab pool, peace turns to war, and he's ready to fight for every inch. After 15 years in the Denver Fire Department and one helicopter crash that nearly folded my spine like an accordion, all I wanted was quiet. Not retirement home quiet, I mean mountain quiet. Trees instead of traffic, owls instead of sirens, and no one knocking on my damn door asking about smoke detector batteries or my lawn height. So when I found the old Lindholm property outside Telluride, 11 acres of alpine peace with a solar-heated lap pool under a glass dome, I knew I'd found it, bought it cash, no mortgage, no neighbors in shouting distance. That pool. Built by a retired physics professor who apparently spent his golden years perfecting eco-engineering and soaking with a martini at 6 a.m. every morning. I respected that. The pool was part of why I bought the place. That and the reinforced concrete foundation. It wasn't just for my own post-op therapy. I signed a contract with the VA hospital in Montrose to lease it 3 mornings a week. Physical therapy groups for veterans. Limited entry, private, quiet, controlled. I handled the chlorine levels, I kept the water at 100 degrees flat, and I installed biometric locks and perimeter cameras before I even unpacked my bed. Veterans came up, did their hour-long rotations, had a sandwich, and left. It worked. It was good. For 6 months, nobody bothered me. I chopped wood. I fed the foxes that hovered near the edge of my property line. I swam every other evening under that big plastic dome with a glass of whiskey next to the control panel. Then came the letter. Cream envelope, embossed in that desperate "We have money but no imagination" font. HOA Aspen Echo Ridge. Now, first of all, I don't live in Aspen Echo Ridge. That development sits up on the ridge to the east, a mile of winding asphalt and architectural control freaks in yoga pants. My property line is well outside their jurisdiction. I triple-checked that at closing. I even asked my attorney to send a letter to the HOA, preemptively stating my parcel was not, and had never been, within their regulatory boundary. It was a nice little touch in case someone got ideas. So I opened the envelope with the amused smirk of a man who was about to be offered landscaping tips by a committee named after a tree. But instead, I got this. Dear Mr. Wakefield, as part of our Community Wellness and Safety Initiative, the Board of Directors of Aspen Echo Ridge HOA is requesting a copy of the use schedule for the aquatic structure located on your parcel, as well as key or access credentials so that community-appointed inspectors may confirm safe usage compliance in accordance with HOA guidelines for shared use visual assets. I read it twice. Then I read it again. Shared use visual assets? What the hell does that even mean? I pictured some committee in a conference room full of organic hand sanitizer, debating whether the sight of my pool through a telescope created an emotional burden for nearby homeowners. I called Maya Thorne, my lawyer, who had handled the property purchase. She's a force of nature in court, and once made a county commissioner cry just by raising her eyebrow. I forwarded her the letter. 5 minutes later, she replied, "They're fishing. I'll draft a response that makes them wish they were fishing in federal waters." Maya's letter was sharp and direct. It included attached copies of the county parcel registry, title deed, surveyor's map, and the non-inclusion affidavit from the original subdivision filing. She CC'd their president, secretary, and legal advisor. It closed with, "Any further attempt to compel access or impose policy on this independent property will be treated as targeted harassment and referred to state authorities." That, I figured, would be the end of it. Mistake, misunderstanding, misguided committee enthusiasm. Pick your poison. People do dumb things when they think they're in charge. 3 days later, I saw a pair of women in matching fleece jackets standing with binoculars at the ridge above my pool dome. I didn't wave. They didn't either. About a week after that ridiculous letter from the HOA, I got a follow-up. Same embossed stationery, same smug tone. This one was signed personally by their president, Karen Tremaine. The kind of name that sounds like it wears heels indoors and drinks Chardonnay before noon. Karen's letter was twice as long and 10 times as delusional. She referred to my pool, which again sits on my privately owned land outside their jurisdiction, as a visual disruption to the thematic cohesion of the community, and expressed ongoing concern for the psychological wellness of neighboring residents who can observe the dome structure from their living spaces. She also reiterated the demand for my pool access schedule, citing security, noise mitigation, and HOA oversight obligations. My favorite line: while we understand that your property is technically not listed under Aspen Echo Ridge jurisdiction, it is clearly within our visual perimeter and thus remains an indirect contributor to the overall ambiance of the community. I'd never seen so many words thrown at a man just to say, "We don't like looking at your pool." That afternoon, I printed the letter and pinned it to my garage wall, next to the one from the time the VA lost my pension paperwork. I call it the wall of bullshit. I grabbed a coffee, opened my laptop, and reread Maya's original response. It was ironclad. There was no loophole, no gray area. We didn't even share utilities with Aspen Echo Ridge. They had no say. So when a White County truck pulled up 2 days later, I was already suspicious. A guy in a puffer vest and clipboard stepped out, looking half apologetic before he even rang the bell. "Mr. Wakefield?" he asked, holding up his badge. "Travis Bell, Building Safety Division. Got a call about a possible violation, structure not compliant with fire accessibility codes." I let out a slow exhale and motioned toward the dome. "This the structure?" He nodded. "Yeah, something about lack of hydrant proximity and questionable egress. It's routine. I'm just here to take a look." I showed him the fire-rated materials list, the engineer's inspection from 6 months ago, and the emergency egress pathway clearly marked on the dome's interior. Travis squinted at the files, gave a long whistle, and said, "Hell, this is cleaner than half the municipal facilities we inspect. Sorry to bother you." As he was walking back to his truck, he turned. "Off the record. You pissed off someone with too much time and not enough fence." Next day, another car showed up. This one was green, Environmental Oversight Office. They'd received an anonymous complaint that I was using prohibited chemicals in the pool that could be leaching into the soil and nearby runoff. Now, my pool system is a sealed loop with a UV sanitizer and minimal chlorine, literally designed to avoid that exact concern. Still, I invited them in, let them test samples, and handed them a folder with lab reports I'd commissioned myself before opening the pool to the VA therapy program. Result? Nothing. Not even a hint of violation. They left looking sheepish. I didn't. I sent a follow-up letter to the HOA, this one personally, stating that further attempts to interfere with or report my property without merit would be interpreted as harassment. I cited statute numbers. I attached the full inspection results from both visits. I also included a screenshot from my security camera footage. Karen herself, standing on the edge of the ridge above my pool with a pair of binoculars in one hand and what looked suspiciously like a clipboard in the other. No response, but I knew I hadn't seen the last of her. The silence felt less like retreat and more like someone drawing breath before the next attack. It was around 2 in the morning when my phone buzzed, motion alert from the west perimeter. I sat up in bed, sore from that day's swim, and tapped into the camera feed. 3 figures, teenagers by the size of them. One of them had what looked like a phone flashlight, and another wore a hoodie with Aspen Echo Ridge's dumb pine cone logo. They were at the back fence line, right where the slope flattens out behind the generator shed. One of them pointed up toward the dome. My jaw tightened. I watched as they shimmied awkwardly under the corner of the fence. Not cut, just lifted. They were trespassing, plain and simple. I was already pulling on pants and dialing the sheriff's non-emergency line when I caught the audio feed. A girl's voice, maybe 15 or 16. Aunt Karen said he doesn't even let anyone in. Says it's public now anyway, so screw him. And then one of the boys. "Dome's unlocked, right?" It wasn't. And they were about to find that out. By the time I got outside, I could hear splashing. I hit the dome override and strode through the side access. Flashlight in one hand, SIG P226 in the other, safety on, but finger resting along the frame. I never point a gun unless I mean to use it, but I damn well make sure people know I own one. Inside, the humidity hit me like a wet towel. The kids froze mid-splash, eyes wide. One of the boys slipped as he tried to climb out and cracked his head on the tile edge. Blood bloomed into the water like ink. The girl screamed. I holstered the pistol and was on the radio immediately, calling it in. Sheriff's deputy showed up within 10 minutes, ambulance behind him. The injured kid, no older than 17, had a gash that would need stitches. Conscious, but in shock. The others? Terrified. The deputy took statements. I showed him the security footage. High-resolution, infrared, time-stamped, audio included. The Aunt Karen line was clear as day. The fence breach. The ignored warning signs. Every inch of it documented. "You want to press charges?" the deputy asked. "You're damn right I do." They took the kids in, at least for the night. I sent everything to Maya, and within hours she'd filed a formal complaint for trespassing and endangerment. But then came the twist. 2 days later, I was served with a civil lawsuit from the injured kids' parents, one of whom, surprise, turned out to be Karen Tremaine's younger brother. They claimed my inadequate property security created an attractive nuisance, making the pool effectively open to uninvited minors. They were suing me for hospital bills, emotional distress, and, get this, denial of community recreation access. Maya nearly choked on her coffee reading the complaint. The county judge didn't throw it out immediately. No, he scheduled a preliminary hearing and issued a temporary injunction. No public or third-party access to the pool facility until civil liability is resolved. That meant shutting down the VA therapy program. Just like that. I called the coordinator at the hospital. He was sympathetic, but policies are policies. Until the case was settled, they couldn't risk sending anyone. Just like that, my pool sat silent. No hum of the water heater. No foot traffic from recovering soldiers. No peace. Karen hadn't just sent teenagers to trespass. She'd baited the trap and made sure the springs snapped shut right across my bank account. The pool sat there like a coffin, silent, sealed, mocking. I used to hear water lapping gently against the tile when I opened the side door in the morning. Now it was just the low, mechanical whine of the circulation system, running out of habit like a ghost pacing a hallway. Every morning, I'd get up, check the lock status, scan the cameras, and stare at the empty walkway where veterans used to hobble up with towels over their shoulders. Maya warned me it would get worse before it got better. She wasn't wrong. She started digging. If Karen Tremaine was behind the trespassing stunt, and that voice recording from her niece, or whatever the hell she was to Karen, all but confirmed it, then we needed more than indignation. We needed proof of intent. Proof of a pattern. So we made calls. First, we spoke with a guy named Roger Briggs. Owned a property just south of mine. Older guy. Retired engineer. His land butted up against a back trail that Aspen Echo Ridge residents had recently started using as their nature loop. Roger had complained, filed a trespass report, and shortly after received a welcome packet from the HOA with a friendly invitation to join as an associate member and cover 12% of maintenance fees. Next was Elaine Becker, a widow who'd inherited a family cabin west of me. She'd gotten 3 anonymous complaints to the county about outdated siding and fire risk vegetation, all filed the week she refused to allow road access to a new Aspen Ridge trailhead that would have cut straight through her driveway. Maya took detailed statements from both of them, got notarized affidavits, and flagged patterns. Same tactics, same phrasing in HOA letters, same style of envelope. But the real break came from a man named Grant Holloway, former HOA board member, now relocated to Arizona. He responded to a cold email with one sentence: "You're not the first target, but you might be the last." We got him on a Zoom call. Grant looked like he'd aged 20 years since his board photo on the Aspen Echo Ridge website. He said he'd left after a heated vote over something called the Peripheral Integration Policy, basically Karen's plan to expand the HOA's influence zone to neighboring parcels, regardless of actual jurisdiction, by flooding the county with complaints, pushing for visual conformity regulations, and using nuisance law to corner owners into surrendering partial rights. She called it soft annexation, Grant said the county was asleep and we could frame it as beautification. But what she really wanted was your pool. He shared internal emails, meeting minutes, a proposed draft of a bylaw amendment that referenced the aquatic structure on Lot 17, non-HOA, as a potential shared-use recreation center pending administrative pressure. That's when the nausea hit. This wasn't just a meddling neighbor with binoculars and boundary issues. This was an orchestrated strategy to coerce me into giving up control over part of my land, starting with the dome. She wanted to reclassify it, designate it as a community access amenity, probably charge residents a fee, fund her HOA coffers with my infrastructure, and the stunt with her niece and the pool. That wasn't some reckless teenager hopping a fence. That was the spark she needed, a fabricated incident that gave her legal pretense to interfere. Maya didn't hesitate. She filed a motion to introduce new evidence in the civil case and began drafting a counterclaim for attempted conversion of private property, conspiracy to commit fraud, defamation, and interference with a federal contract. We weren't just going to play defense anymore. This was war. There's a moment after the shock wears off, the moment when anger hardens into something usable, not just outrage, strategy. I sat on my porch with Maya's files spread across the patio table, laptops open, notarized statements from Briggs and Becker on one side, screenshots of HOA meeting notes on the other, and in the center, that transcript from the Zoom call with Grant Holloway. The phrase stuck in my head like a nail in a boot sole. Soft annexation. Maya was all business. This isn't just about the pool anymore. It's a textbook case of malicious encroachment, fraud by administrative manipulation. If we want to go nuclear, we file a multi-claim countersuit. Force them to defend on all fronts. I looked at the dome down the hill. Morning light glinted off its acrylic panels, still locked up and silent. My back twinged the way it does when the scar tissue tightens, a little reminder of the helicopter wreck that ended my career and started this life. That pool saved me. It saved half a dozen other vets too, and now it's at useless because a power-hungry HOA queenpin wanted to charge admission. Let's go nuclear, I said. That afternoon, Maya filed an official counterclaim in district court. Illegal trespass and endangerment, intentional infliction of financial harm, tortious interference with a federal medical contract, defamation of character, and conspiracy to coerce private property integration. Within 48 hours, we served Karen Tremaine and the HOA board with notice. Each one was delivered in person. Maya insisted on it. "You don't let rats hide behind email," she said. The very next morning, the passive-aggressive bullshit went public. I woke up to see a glossy HOA bulletin stapled to a trail marker near the road. Big red letters across the top. Community Safety Alert. Below that, a photo of my pool dome, taken from an angle only accessible from the HOA Ridge Trail, meaning someone had climbed up there with a telephoto lens and violated my airspace with a drone or long lens. The text read, "Due to recent incidents and pending litigation, community members are advised to remain cautious around unregulated properties adjacent to Aspen Echo Ridge. Unknown chemicals and unsafe access routes have been documented. The HOA will continue working to ensure safety and visual harmony." They'd made me sound like a meth lab with a diving board. That was the moment I decided to stop playing defense completely. I called a friend, Luis Ortega, a veteran buddy who ran a local press outlet in Montrose. Didn't matter that it was small. What mattered was reach. I gave him the full story, files and all, and asked him to do one thing: print the truth. No spin, no sugarcoating. He agreed. 2 days later, the article went live. Veterans Rehab Facility targeted by HOA over visual harmony concerns. The byline was sharp, direct, and it named names: Karen Tremaine, Aspen Echo Ridge Board of Directors, and the exact wording of their peripheral integration policy draft. The article included pictures of the dome, quotes from Becker and Briggs, and a shot of the VA hospital entrance. It went semi-viral, at least by Mountain Town standards. I got over 200 emails that week. Strangers, fellow vets, old firehouse buddies, people outraged, stunned, and ready to help. A local attorney offered to file an amicus brief. A retired judge emailed Maya and told her to drag that HOA into the light and stomp it flat. But the best part, one of the HOA board members, a quiet woman named Melissa Grady, broke ranks. She emailed Maya a packet of internal correspondence, subject lines like Karen's expansion strategy and suggested language to justify pool annex. Some of them even referenced fabricating nuisance complaints to build a paper trail. Gold. We amended our counterclaim to include civil conspiracy and malicious abuse of process. Then we requested full discovery. Karen's lawyer reached out. He sounded tired, already licking wounds. Offered a settlement, $25,000, and a public clarification. Maya didn't even laugh. She just said, "No deal. We're not here for hush money. We're here for blood." By the end of the week, subpoenas went out. HOA board members were suddenly less talkative. The neighborhood Facebook group, which I wasn't technically part of, but trust me, screenshots travel, was on fire. Some people started peeling off their HOA window decals. Others put up signs. "We support Wakefield." A few even started calling Karen the pool pirate. The tide had turned. and for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. I don't believe in omens, but when a mountain bluebird flew into my truck windshield that morning and bounced off like a feathered tennis ball, I had the sinking feeling the day wasn't going to end with beer and peace. The hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the county courthouse in Norwood. Maya and I arrived early. She wore her hair up like a sword and carried a box of evidence like it weighed nothing. I brought my cane, mostly symbolic but helpful on marble floors. Karen was already there, parked right out front in a spotless white Range Rover with custom plates that said, "Ho for life." I could have vomited. Inside, the courtroom was warmer than expected. The judge, Honor Daniel Frey, was a no-nonsense type who looked like he sharpened pencils by glaring at them. Civil docket, preliminary hearing. On paper, this was just supposed to be a step toward determining whether the nuisance complaint and personal injury claim would proceed to trial, but what unfolded was more like a tactical demolition. Karen's attorney started with a rambling statement about visual aesthetics, community cohesion, uncontrolled facility use, and my abrasive resistance to regulatory compromise. He even used the phrase civic narcissism. I wrote it down for future use. Then Maya stood, calm, precise, terrifying. She submitted our full binder of evidence, time-stamped video of the trespass, drone footage of HOA members peering over the ridge, the Zoom transcript from Grant Holloway, internal HOA emails from Melissa Grady, and the community alert flyer, referring to my pool as a potential contaminant. She cited Colorado statutes about private property protections, abuse of nuisance law, interference with medical operations under a federal VA contract, and civil conspiracy standards. By the time she sat down, even the judge looked like he wanted aspirin. Then Karen made a mistake. She stood, not her lawyer, her. And she said, with a smile that could curdle milk, "Your Honor, it's not about the pool, it's about the precedent." If people like Mr. Wakefield think they can build whatever they want, wherever they want, and ignore the visual and communal responsibility to neighbors, the judge cut her off. "Ms. Tremaine, please be advised that what you just said may have just confirmed intent to coerce private landowners into policy compliance without jurisdiction." Karen sat down hard. The judge ordered the civil case into full trial and allowed our amended counterclaims to proceed in tandem, but he didn't stop there. He issued a temporary protective order preventing any Aspen Echo Ridge board member from entering or observing my property with optical devices, drones, or foot traffic. He also authorized a third-party court monitor to investigate whether the HOA's use of county services and complaint mechanisms had violated ethical standards or crossed into criminal abuse. We walked out of the courthouse with the wind behind us. I wanted to light a cigar. That evening, I got a phone call from a name I hadn't expected to see on my caller ID. Sergeant Amelia Dorsey, San Miguel County Sheriff's Department. She asked if I had a few minutes to talk. She came by in person. Sergeant Dorsey was in plain clothes, but she carried herself like someone who had no time for nonsense. She sat on my porch, took out a notepad, and said, "We've received multiple overlapping complaints about the HOA from several property owners. Your case lit the match. We're opening a preliminary criminal investigation into their board activity, possible fraud, coordinated false reporting, and obstruction of civil use of property." I nodded. "You want me to testify?" "Eventually," she said. "But first, we're going to need every communication they've sent you, and any evidence of attempted intimidation. We already have one witness who says Karen offered to resolve the situation in exchange for part-time pool access." I nearly laughed. Bribery, too. They really went all in. Sergeant Dorsey didn't smile. "This isn't just HOA harassment anymore. This is organized pressure to expropriate property. That's serious." I gave her everything. She left with a thumb drive and a promise. Maya called an hour later. She'd just spoken with the county commissioner's office. Apparently, they'd received an official complaint from someone inside the HOA alleging misuse of legal resources and fraudulent manipulation of county enforcement. Karen had made a lot of enemies, and now they were crawling out of the woodwork. The dome was still quiet, the pool still off limits, but the war was going public, and this time Karen wasn't the only one being watched. 2 weeks passed, and the whole town was buzzing. Aspen Echo Ridge went from being an exclusive gated community to the punchline of every local bar conversation. Someone even painted a sign on a piece of plywood and propped it up near the turnoff to their subdivision. Caution: HOA may be hazardous to your property rights. Sheriff's deputies didn't remove it. Hell, I think one of them helped nail it in. The legal gears were turning, slow but steady. Maya was working on depositions, and the third-party court monitor had begun requesting records from the HOA's internal meetings, financials, and complaint logs. Word had it that Karen wasn't just nervous. She was panicking. And then came the bombshell. Melissa Grady, the board member who'd already leaked internal emails to us, filed a whistleblower affidavit. She provided full documentation showing that the HOA had created a visual conflict report template, a fill-in-the-blank form designed specifically to mass-produce county complaints about neighboring properties. It even had a drop-down list: structure-color mismatch, unauthorized recreational activity, ecological disruption, and, my personal favorite, non-conforming silhouette. Maya sent that to the judge with a note: if this doesn't show intent, nothing will. Meanwhile, Sergeant Dorsey's investigation escalated. She came by again, this time with 2 other deputies, and asked to review the site perimeter in person. I walked them along the fence line, showed them the biometric lock system, the VA contracts, the filtered waste system, and the medical equipment storage bay in the back wing of the dome. "You run this tighter than the county pool," one of the deputies muttered. Dorsey nodded. "And yet they called this a hazard." She then asked if I'd be willing to give a full recorded statement, not just for the property dispute, but for the criminal investigation. "Of course," I said. She leaned in a little. "Off the record, we think there's fraud, misuse of public resources, possibly even falsified documents filed under oath." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. The rage was there, low and hot in my gut, but it wasn't wild anymore. It was focused. Then came the final twist, the one I hadn't seen coming. Maya called one night just after 9. They tried to sell access. What? Karen and 2 board members met with a private wellness group from Denver. There's a record of a proposal to lease your pool, designated as a community facility for shared therapeutic services, and retroactively declare it under HOA management. The documents are signed. I sat back in my chair, staring at the dome outside my window like it was a wounded animal someone tried to dress in a leash. They tried to sell something they didn't own. Exactly, Maya said. That's not just fraud. That's attempted conversion of property with intent to profit. That's a felony. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with the lights off, windows open, listening to the night wind rush through the aspens. Somewhere out there, Karen was realizing the house she'd built. Every lie, every complaint, every smug demand was collapsing. The next morning, I got an email from the VA. They were reinstating the therapy contract. The suspension had been lifted pending final court resolution, and they were confident that my case would set a meaningful precedent for protection of rehabilitative programs. I called Luis Ortega, the journalist from Montrose, and gave him an update. 24 hours later, the headline read, HOA scandal explodes, fraud allegations, felony claims, and 1 veteran who wouldn't back down. 3 Denver news stations picked it up. 1 national outlet reached out for an interview. I declined. I wasn't in this for fame. I just wanted my pool back. And I wanted Karen to pay. The courtroom was packed. Locals, reporters, a few fellow vets I hadn't seen in months. Even Roger Briggs showed up in a bolo tie and leather jacket like he was testifying at a congressional hearing. The trial had been moved to Telluride due to community interest. Translation: half the county wanted to see Karen burn. Karen Tremaine sat stiffly at the defense table, jaw clenched so tight she looked like she'd eaten her own HOA charter. Her lawyer, not the same one from before, this one looked more like a damage control specialist, kept shuffling papers like that'd stop what was coming. Maya looked calm, deadly calm. Her opening statement was brief. This case is about power, abuse of it, the use of bureaucratic tools to terrorize, defame, and financially cripple a man who did nothing more than try to heal. Then she laid it all out, in chronological order, with documentation, video, internal emails, financial documents, experts, testimony, and a quiet, deadly rhythm that kept the jury's attention glued. Every trespass, every complaint, every forged form and deliberate misrepresentation. The prosecution followed suit on the criminal side: conspiracy, malicious filing, attempted property conversion, fraud. The key piece: the leasing proposal Karen and her board sent to the Denver Wellness Group, using my pool as leverage for funding. A property they never owned. A facility the court had already ruled was fully private and protected. Karen tried to take the stand. Bad move. She rambled about community integrity, protecting neighborhood standards, and then, under cross, she actually said, "Frankly, some people just can't be allowed to operate outside the HOA model. It breeds disorder." Maya didn't have to object. The courtroom did it for her. A collective exhale like someone had slapped a nun. The verdict came in 3 days later. Guilty. Karen Tremaine was convicted on multiple counts: conspiracy to commit fraud, criminal misrepresentation, malicious harassment, attempted illegal annexation, and obstruction of contract. Sentenced to 6 years in a Colorado women's correctional facility. No parole for at least 3. The HOA, as a legal entity, dissolved. A court-appointed administrator was assigned to liquidate its assets and audit all past expenditures. Multiple board members were fined. 2 were barred from holding any property governance positions again. 1 fled the state. No one missed them. As for me, the civil court awarded damages: $480,000, lost income, legal cost, reputational harm, emotional distress. The judge called it one of the most egregious cases of administrative abuse this court has seen in recent memory. The injured teen's parents, Karen's brother and sister-in-law, were ordered to pay $110,000 in additional civil penalties for their role in the trespass and false injury claim. They tried to cry in court. The judge told them to take it up with their sister. 8 months later, the dome reopened. The VA contract was back in full swing. We had upgraded the entire facility. New access control, new cameras, even solar integration for sustainability. The vets started coming back, first in 1s and 2s, then more. I added a metal sign over the entry path: private property, not HOA compatible. Luis Ortega wrote a follow-up article titled "Mountain Man Who Broke the HOA Mafia." He quoted me at the end. They wanted my schedule and my keys. Now they don't even have a mailbox. Some days I still look out across the ridge where Karen used to stand with her binoculars. The wind feels quieter now. No more letters, no more threats, just the sound of water.